Whoa. You're going to the tournament tomorrow, right?
Yep. All right. So let's skip ahead to where we were. Stop doing that, Microsoft. All right. Let's see, where did we leave off yesterday? Zion. Okay, good. All right. So, if you learn nothing else at all from this unit on scientific method and research design, please learn this. All right? I will quiz you and test you about it mercilessly. So, you've got your own reasons to do this. A hypothesis is not an educated guess.
What? Have our teachers lied to us?
The whole time.
Why?
The whole time.
Isn't that illegal?
No.
Why not?
No, my fourth grade teacher told me that hummingbirds couldn't land because their feet were too small. And I believed that for the following 15 years. And then I saw a ruby-throated hummingbird land on a branch and just sit there and look at me. And it shattered my faith in education.
My third grade teacher told me that hummingbirds couldn't stop flying or their heart would stop.
Yeah, that's also not true. I don't think we can really do that. Okay. All right. Instead, a hypothesis is a relationship you expect. Right? You have done literature review, you have developed theory, you know exactly what you expect to see between your variables. You expect to see some kind of correlation, positive or negative. We'll talk about what that means in a minute. Typically, when we talk about this relationship, we use the letters X and Y. X for our independent variable, our cause, and Y for our dependent variable, our effect or outcome. There are different ways of stating a hypothesis. There classically is the if-then statement. If X, then Y.
If 7, then
More common in the social sciences especially are probabilistic hypotheses. Meaning, if X, then more likely Y, or the more X, the more likely Y. Okay, sorry, once again, we've got the loom kind of getting in the way. Okay, and then, and I guess I'd better jump out. Here you should have ceteris paribus, and I know it's basically our Friday, and I'm throwing Latin at you, and that's just not nice. Yes, you did, Tom. Okay, so ceteris paribus means all other things being equal.
Hey, my hair deck won't load. I think it's because of the openness. I think it's why? Because my hair deck won't load. See, like I press reload and then it doesn't. Like it says loading and then it just shows a pair again. Like
You have to open it in. You not know.
oh, it's the internet.
Okay.
I figured it out.
So, the ceteris paribus clause. I'm not just doing that to you because I want to be snooty and say obscure Latin phrases. We need it because sometimes we need to be able to say all other things being equal. The wealthier a person is, the more likely they are to be happy, all other things being equal. We especially need this clause at the end, either all other things being equal or ceteris paribus, if we make a strong hypothesis such as this. If a person is wealthy, then they will be happy.
You watch football, Dr. Brown?
Never mind.
So the reason that we would say if a person is wealthy, then they will be happy, ceteris paribus, is because if Jalen, congratulations, you're a billionaire. You happy?
Yeah, I'm so happy.
Jalen, you're a billionaire. You have a terminal illness. You'll be dead in 3 months, and every day for the next 3 months, you are going to live in excruciating, nonstop pain for which there is no possible source of alleviation. You still happy?
I am not very happy.
No, that money doesn't mean anything because you are in constant pain. You can't enjoy it. Right? That's why we need all other things being equal, right? Because we could have 2 billionaires, one happy and one very unhappy because of something like an illness.
Your middle name is David?
All right. Okay, there's actually a missing word there. It should be the more ethnically homogeneous a place is, the happier its people will be. The more the government spends on public services, the happier people will be.
So you're Adam David Brown?
Jeez, Marshall. All right. Could also say the more the government spends on public services, the happier people will be. We don't always need ceteris paribus at the end because a probabilistic statement, right, already allows for the possibility that other variables matter.
When is chapter 13?
And we can have fairly strong hypotheses still. If people are trusting, they will be happy. Our next step is to test our hypothesis. Right? And we test it against empirical evidence. Remember, logic and argumentation are good for stating a theory, but we must have empirical evidence to test it. That evidence might be quantitative, meaning things that we can attach numerical values to. And then use statistical methods to measure their correlation. Evidence can also be qualitative. Which is non-numerical. It's more likely to be based on detailed comparison. It might also be something that would look very much like a history, but it's a history with a purpose. We might be trying to trace a process. Whichever type of method we are using, quantitative or qualitative, both are ways of determining correlation. Correlation does not have to be statistical. We just need to know how variables change together. And specifically, we want to be able to talk about direction. Is it a positive correlation? Meaning that the variables change in the same direction. As values for our independent variable go up, values for our dependent variable also go up. That would probably be true, as we saw, with wealth and happiness. As wealth goes up for a person, their happiness likely also goes up. If it's negative, though, it's a change in the opposite direction. Right? And so if we stick with our case of Jalen, right, as Jalen's wealth went up, Jalen's happiness went up. But right, as Jalen's pain goes up, happiness goes down. That's a negative correlation. One goes up, the other goes down.
Wait, but what if like she has like her money goes up, but then like I don't know.
But that was why we did that example, is that money doesn't always, like, it's not always the most important determinant of your happiness. Okay. We also want to know the strength of a correlation. If a correlation is strong, then changes in the variables will track each other very closely. If it's a perfectly strong correlation, a 1-to-1 correlation, for every 1% Jalen gains in wealth, Jalen will gain 1% in happiness. And for those of you that are math inclined, don't worry about compounding interest. Just keep it simple and enjoy the simple illustration. If, however, the correlation is weak, then the changes don't closely match each other. We're going to see some relationships like that, where the independent variable goes up, and that doesn't necessarily mean anything for what happens to the dependent variable. And if we have a weak correlation, then chances are our hypothesis is not supported, and our theory does not do a good job of answering our questions about the world. We need to find something else. The other thing you need to understand is that correlation is not causation. The most famous example of this that everybody will trot out, you're going to hear it again, and I don't want you to think, well, Dr. Brown stole that and acted like it was his own original thought. It isn't, but it always works. There is pretty good correlation between ice cream sales and homicides. What? Right. As more ice cream is sold in a society, more people get murdered. Right. So should we ban ice cream to save lives?
Typically, it's due to an increase in population.
No, because that's assuming.
Well, and that's
a correlation and a causation.
And that's why this always works, right? I mean, and that's why you are going to hear other teachers will use this in other parts of life. So, all right, so hold on. Before we'll keep this structured here for a minute. All right. So you guys aren't buying the idea that ice cream causes murder. Zion is totally on board with that. All right. So it's got to be something else. When is most ice cream sold? Summertime, right? When it's hot. Okay. What else is happening when it's summertime? People are going outside more often, right? Yeah. So you have more likelihood that people are around one another. What else happens when it's hot? Nope. I mean, they do that too, but this is not it. Maybe. There's also that. What does hot weather tend to do to people's moods when they're outside? Yeah, they get irritated, they get grumpy. I know I do, right? Like a hot sunny day is absolutely miserable.
They give us summer off because it's the worst season by far.
I don't disagree with you. So people are out, and the hot weather is making them cranky. Okay? If you are in proximity to other people and you're angry, are you more likely to kill somebody? Yeah. You're also more likely to be out buying ice cream. So ice cream sales are correlated with homicide, but the causal factor really has to do with the weather and people being outside interacting with other people. It's quite possible that Brycey eats ice cream all year round, but like Brycey, when it's 5 below outside in the middle of January, you're eating ice cream at home alone, right? And that may sound sad to some of you, but it's not, because she's still eating ice cream, right? And that makes people happy, right? It doesn't matter about the ice cream. McKenna can also be eating ice cream, but it's 5 below for McKenna, and McKenna is also all alone eating ice cream. When you're all alone eating ice cream, you can't murder anybody. Right? So correlation is not causation, but it is evidence, especially if we have a correlation that matches our theory. And so Zion, here's the thing. If you are able to come up with a logically consistent, right, very solid, well-argued theory, like I said, logic and argumentation do matter. If you can do that and provide a reason for us to actually think that ice cream causes murder, then all of a sudden we have to reevaluate that correlation. And we have to assume that because Brycey likes ice cream, there's also a very good chance that Brycey kills people.
Say someone bumps into you while you're eating ice cream, you drop it, you immediately pull out your gun and then shoot them. It's logical.
All right.
This is defamation.
Oh, yeah, I really should not use an example of a student that's in my law and citizen classes. So
No, but
we can cut that part out, just like my
if you
full
found
name.
A way you could find a causation between ice cream sales and murder.
All right. So what I want us to do now is take apart an actual theory and hypothesis to kind of show you how this step works. This is not a sociological theory, right? But right here it is. A person's genetics influences their height. So genetic makeup causes differences in height from one person to the next. People inherit their genetics, right, from their parents. So parents and their offspring should have similar adult heights. That's the theory. The hypothesis is the expectation between variables that we pull out of that theory. And here it is. We'll keep it fairly simple. The taller a father is, the taller his son will be, ceteris paribus, right? Or all other things being equal. So the first thing for our pair deck, I want you to answer this question. Why do we need to add ceteris paribus, or all other things being equal, to that hypothesis? Nope. Just in the pair deck. All right. Oh, pair deck is still doing its.
I needed more time.
Okay. All right. So we had lots of things. Let's go with this one first. So other factors, health, right? If a son has a father who's 6.5 feet tall, descended of solid Viking stock, but he's growing up in northern Sweden when the weather turns out to be really bad for several years, crops are horrible, there's not much sunlight, and the son suffers from malnutrition and rickets, he's going to be bow-legged and not nearly as tall as his father. Right? Well, that's one of the ways. Well, don't worry about that. It's not that kind of class.
Are you worried about that, Marshall?
You don't need to worry about rickets in 2022 United States. All right. Okay. The other factor, of course, is the height of the other parent, right? The mother, right? And you probably all know somebody who fits this, right? brother-in-law is 6 feet tall, which is substantially taller than I am, and that must be nice, but my father-in-law is 6'4". What happened? Well, my 6'4" father-in-law has a wife who's like 5'4", right? And so the son is not as tall as the father. So we need to know that. There is, of course, also the possibility that the mom is taller and so actually makes the son taller than we would expect based on the height of the father.
What if you're taller than both parents?
Yeah, I'm taller.
That
than my
happens.
parents.
That happens sometimes.
My dad's 5'9", my mom is 5'4", but my grandpa is 6'5", so that's pretty much
Yeah.
the only reason I'm tall.
Yeah, that can happen, right? But that's also why we need to factor in these other things. Okay. Wish that would stop doing that. All right. Now, we also need to conceptualize our variables. What is height? Well, throw it in the pear deck and
I'm still on the last page. It's broken. Yeah, no, that's right. That's broken.
sorry, Quinlan.
Sad day.
All right. So we have, right, and just within the first two answers, we have got kind of the extremes of conceptualization. A very minimal conceptualization, how tall you are. Right? That's probably not enough, but it's close. This one, on the other hand, right, is very detailed, right? Very specific, right, but goes too far. Right? This part here is operationalization. Now, when you write this up in a paper, that's probably fine. But for our purposes, I want you to always keep those two steps distinct. Right? Conceptualization is just the definition. So everything with that is fine to hear, right? To feet.
Mine was two
Right.
words.
Yeah. Well, like I said, that we would probably want a little bit more because we might also want to include like how tall you are, right? Not including hair.
I just said
Or
I
shoes.
just said a measurement.
So but again, don't go into measurement because that's operationalization. Okay, what is a father? Now, guys, this is not some kind of stealth way for me to get you guys to write
Come on, man.
the Father's Day card I'm going to give my dad next June, right? Like just keep this to conceptualization. And what are those things where you take each letter in a word and turn it into a word all of its own? What are those called? Don't do that either. I don't remember what they're called, but don't do that. Where you take like a word and you write it vertically, and then you write a word from each of the letters. Like, so you would write like father from top to bottom, and then F is for fun, A is for always there. Anybody does that, right? No, I think once again that reaches the numerical threshold at which Ella is allowed to end your life.
What?
Yep.
Why
We established that yesterday for Griffin. Why do you think Griffin's wearing a disguise today? An acrostic, that's it. Okay. I really thought it had a fancier name than that. Like all I could think of was anagram, which is not right.
No, I ran out of time.
All right. Okay. And again, you guys are really, I don't want to give short shrift to the later responses. You guys are doing a very good job kind of giving me the two definitions that we really need to be able to compare. So, a person who parents a child, could that also be a mother? Yes. And does parenting a child mean that you have contributed any of the genetic makeup of that child? No. If, right, for example, if I adopt, right, a male child from the Maasai tribe in Eastern Africa, there's a very good chance that that boy is going to be very tall when he grows into a man. I will have had very little to do with that other than feeding that child. Right? He's going to be benefiting from genetic makeup of people who tend to be very tall and very lean. I had nothing to do with that. Right? This is the definition we would want for this particular case. Right? Biological father. Right? The person who contributed genetic makeup. Right? Well, no, but this is, and that's why we're just doing this all together so we can kind of see the different ways of doing this and why we need to be careful. Right? On the other hand, if we want to know, what predicts whether a child is going to be successful in school or in emotional development, then, right, a father as a person who parents a child is enough, right? If I do adopt a child from descended from Maasai tribesmen from East Africa, right, and provide a nurturing, caring home, that is important for things like emotional development, just not height. Okay. And let's actually, for the sake of time, we're going to skip that one. I think you guys have got conceptualization pretty well down. All right, now, how do we observe or measure height? How do we operationalize it? And if you're thinking, didn't we just kind of talk about that? We did, right? Because one of you already went to this step. The effect. The other one is the cause. Okay, I didn't set a timer on that, but I'm going to go ahead and share our responses. Okay, so measurements, feet and inches, or maybe centimeters or meters, right? Either of those would be fine. And in this case, we don't actually have to have the exact same operationalization. If I use feet and inches and Quinlan uses metric, we'll just convert it later. That's fine. Okay, and we're going to skip that one too because I think you guys have got that. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, looking at this graph, right, on the x-axis, we have father height in inches, and on the y-axis, we have son's height in inches, right? Father's height gets bigger, son height gets bigger. Is the correlation between father height and son height positive or negative? Well, tell the pear deck, Griffin. Tell the pear deck.
Yeah, Griffin, you freaking. Hey, that's some water. You can't throw water at me. We'll throw it back at you.
All right. And by unanimous decision, at least of those people participating, no longer unanimous. You're right, Zion. It is positive. As father height goes up, son height tends to go up. Okay, last one before we go to lunch. Is the correlation strong or weak? You only have those two choices. Is it strong or is it weak?
Dr. Brown, did the sun, like the one in our solar system, do you get birth itself?
But nope, guys, just do this. We should not be out of seats yet. We have plenty of time. All right. Oops. Okay. And it turns out it actually is a pretty strong relationship. The majority of you were right about that.